everybody. Kent Stones from Fake Not. It is Friday. Because it's Friday, I'm going to be working off some notes. I have not had time to memorize this probably how I should. So anyway, if you see me glancing down, that's why. And on that note, before I start jumping into trust, just a quick note about, I'm reading a really good book by Sean Acor, and it's called Before Happiness. And I was reading a chapter this morning, and something that really struck me was that he talks about how happiness is not being blind to all the negatives in our environment, but believing you have the power to do something about them. And I thought that was a really powerful and important construct to think about when we're thinking about trust, because it's a mindset, and part of that mindset is gratitude. And so today I just wanted to express a little gratitude around, it's been a great week. Things are happening around Fake Not. Lots of support. We've got our first webinar almost ready to go. So things are going really well, but I'm just really grateful for all the people who've given support and advice. And quite frankly today, and I'm also just feeling very grateful about being loved. So I hope you're all having as good a Friday as I am. On to trust. So, we've been talking about trust, and we're going to talk about the most powerful element of it today. And that powerful element is benevolence. And we're going to find out it may be powerful, but it's also the most difficult one to do. So quick recap of what we've talked about so far is there are two kinds of trust. There's functional trust, which is the good service, quality product, feature set, all the things that we have probably done as good branding professionals in the past. We've checked those off. Those are the things we have to do well. There's not a great benefit for doing them well, but there's a huge penalty for not. So that's step one. Step two is integrity. Or element two is integrity, and this is about the principles and values that you live by. And the theory is if you have those values and principles, you're going to find an audience that shares those, and they're going to choose your brand over others. So that's the theory. And quite frankly, as we've talked about, this is where a lot of companies are spending their time and effort, being purpose-driven, what's their why, all those kinds of things. And it's very, very good. But again, it's still not enough. It's just step two. Step three, or element three, is benevolence. And benevolence is what's underneath of it at all. It's the motivation for why we're doing anything. It's intention. And it's a very powerful force, but it's probably the hardest thing to do. And simply, if you want to think about it, it's what your brand does when nobody's paying attention. It's what's really talked about behind closed doors. It's what's really driving the decisions that's made at your company and about your brand. The question is, I think ultimately, does your brand have your customers' best interests at heart? And there's a couple of good litmus tests that you can apply to determine whether or not you think you're well down this path. And the first is, is your brand sustainably created, distributed, and used? So and when I talk about sustainability, it's far more than just the environmental aspect of it, which is important. But is the economic model of it sustainable? Is it socially and culturally viable? Are you going to be around for the long term? Second would be, are you improving life in some way? And I'm not just talking about human life here, but thinking about what are the tangible things that your brand does that actually improves the life of a species in some way. And then the third area is your brand having a positive impact on the local communities where it exists? And this is far beyond just sponsorships, events, those kinds of things. Those are all good, but they're on the surface. And are you a part of the community? How are you involved? Are you hiring locally? Are your managers local? Are you trying to use local vendors and suppliers whenever possible? So things like that just really actually start to demonstrate that you are a part of the community and have that community's best interest at heart. So as you can see, benevolence is something that is really easy to talk about. It's easy to put on the website. It's easy to have under a certain, corporate responsibility tab, but it's really hard to do. I don't know how many brands that I've worked with in the past, you come up with these great ideas and they'd say like, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that because it's just not logistically possible. I don't know if we can get our employees to get engaged or what have you. If that's occurring in your organization, you're going to have a real challenge earning the emotional trust that we need in the future. So I want to give you a quick example of a brand that I just love, and that's Bombas socks. And Bombas, they make so they've got the list checked off on quality product, excellent product, well designed, all that, step one. They have a strong purpose and underlying theme about their brand that I think you could say they've got integrity, principles and values checked off. The third is benevolence. And what are they doing? So Bombas, what they do when they provide when you buy a pair of socks, they donate a pair of socks to a homeless shelter. Now, I know the last live stream I was a little critical of a car dealership who was making a donation to a children's hospital whenever you bought a car. But there's a difference here, because when you buy a pair of Bombas socks, they distribute them, but they didn't just do that. They are not just giving them another pair of socks. They actually engineered a pair of socks specifically for a homeless population. They've got extra stitching. They're all a dark color. They gave them an antimicrobial treatment. They strengthened certain areas of the sock. So they've gone far above what they necessarily needed to do just to look good or to say, oh, look at all the great things we're doing. They did that no matter what. And so that's why I love that brand. I trust that brand, and I buy that brand because I know they're gonna do the right thing. So that's really putting someone else's best interest at heart. So next, we're gonna start talking about how we actually do something about this. I know it's all well and good to talk about theory, the elements of trust. What do they mean? It sounds all good, blah blah blah. But what do we actually start to do about it? So next week we're going to start talking about what is the system of trust, because if something is a system, we can understand it, analyze it, and do something about it. So we're going to start breaking that down, and then as we keep going forward, we'll keep breaking down further and further what are very specific and tangible things you can do to move toward emotional trust. Hope you all have a great weekend. Bye.